Hayes and I looked at each other and we dusted ourselves off and found out we were still alive. We said, gee, we ought to write this, put this on paper. Well, you know, the best laid plans, we all went into different careers after NASA, never got around to it. When I retired from the telephone industry, you know, some 20 years later, I finally came up and I looked at my secretary and I said, what should we do? Don't have to worry about telephones. And she said, well, why don't you write that book you've been talking about? So about that time, I got a call from a young author, Jeff Kluger, and he said, I want to write a book about Apollo 13. And to make a long story short, we decided to write the book together. We finally sent it to our agent, who sent it out to California, and Ron Howard bought the option to do it. The first thing they did, they went to NASA to look at the mission control and to talk to people that were still there, that were involved in 13. The only actor that was assigned was Tom Hanks. And I was asked to come to be one of the hosts, so I was showing the crew through the control center in Houston, and Hanks pulled me aside. And he said, Jim, I have to know more about you. I have to know, how you speak and, your idea of the flight from your perspective so that I can actually portray you. And I said, well, Tom, I have a home near Austin. Why don't you fly down? I'll pick you up, and you spend a weekend with us. I have flight plans, accident reports, some videos. We'll go over the whole thing. He said, fine. He flew into Austin, and my home was 50 miles west in a place called Horseshoe Bay. I owned a small airplane called a Baron, and I got him in this airplane to take him to my house. And I noticed that when he got on the airplane, he was very worried. Actors and actresses are used to big corporate jets or 747s or something like that. And I kind of figured, though, that if this fellow was going to play the part of a naval aviator, a test pilot, and an astronaut, we got to get started right away. The flight from Austin to my home in Horseshoe Bay takes 15 minutes. I took an hour and a half. I try to remember all those things I did as a test pilot, approaches to stalls, unusual attitudes. He hung in there, but then during the quiet part of the flight, I was asking him what movie he had done recently, and he said, Gump. And I said, Gump? He said, yeah, Forrest Gump. Now that movie had not yet been released, and so I asked him to tell me all about that story. And when he was finished, I thought to myself, Houston, do we have another problem here? But the movie was accurate.
Well, Ron Howard had